My name is Usman Riaz. I'm the co-founder of Mano Animation Studios and the director, animator, and co-composer behind The Glassworker. No one has ever attempted to make a film like this in Pakistan, a fully hand-drawn independent feature film. Pakistan is known for many things, but hand-drawn animation is certainly not one of them. I want to change that. I've spent almost a decade pursuing this impossible dream, but whoever said pursuing your dreams is easy? You have to put your heart and soul into your work and see what happens. Our journey began in a car ride in Karachi, Pakistan. I had directed 2 live-action short films at the time, and I was describing an idea for a new film to Mariam.
So Usman always had multiple ideas for films and projects that he wanted to do. I remember we were literally on the road on Seaview when Usman came up with the idea of this girl walking into a glass shop that's going to be sunlit. I remember it was a very vivid image that he was describing, and he was interpreting it to be a live action film.
And the more I described this film, the more we began to realize that this couldn't be done in live action.
As soon as he said that, I said, why? Why don't you make it an animated film? I just said it. I mean, I didn't really think it was going to stick.
I said, you know what? Why not? How hard can it really be? That conversation was in the summer of 2014. The film we were discussing is called The Glassworker.
I was approached by my cousin Usman to kind of help him with this crazy idea that he had. And him and I grew up together, so we've kind of been basically training all our lives to work together without realizing we were. So when Usman came to me, I kind of jumped on board this project of Mano Animation Studios. At that point in time, the only people who Usman had courted was his wife. I don't think she had a choice. I don't think I had a choice either in hindsight.
The Glassworker is a coming-of-age story about 2 children from separate walks of life, Vincent, an apprentice glassblower, learning from his father in their artisan glass shop, and Elise, a talented violinist and daughter of the stoic Colonel Amanu. The love that develops between Vincent and Elise is challenged constantly by the differing views of their fathers. It is a time when patriotism and social standing are considered more important than free thought and artistic pursuits. It is a time when love is just not relevant. The Glassworker is about perseverance. It examines innocence, war, melancholy, and loss. Like Vincent and Elise facing the growing threat of war, my colleagues and I grew up with the looming threat of conflict in a post-9/11 world. Riot drills, bomb threats, curfews, guards and checkpoints all over Karachi became an everyday part of our lives. Yet, we continued to move forward. This was the only existence we knew. The Glassworker subtly reflects our lives in Pakistan, starting with a glimpse into the way we grew up in Karachi, seen in the conflicts, the local legends, the colonial architecture, even down to what the characters wear, what they eat, and how they live their daily lives. So I set out with this intention, but I never imagined that I would get to work with so many incredible people.
With The Glassworker, what I really found that really fascinated me is the director, Usman Riaz. It's a talent that will be known by the world, and it's a talent that still has many films in him and many films in his studio.
Usman could work from anywhere in the world that he feels like it. You know, he's an incredible composer, incredible artist, incredible director, and yet he chooses to work from Karachi. I think there's a color and a flavor that's in the film of Pakistan, and there's a flavor of that kind of colonial, mythical colonial world.
I've done animation before, but I've never really worked on film of this nature. A beautiful independent film. I thought the story is simply brilliant, and also it's the first time that I've worked with South Asian talent as well, actors, and of course the brilliant Usman Riaz and his team are really attracted to me. I'm a huge advocate of challenging and working with South Asian talent. I'm so proud to be part of this.
The Glassworker script just came alive. I understood what these people, I understood what he was trying to tell, what story he was trying to tell. But against that was this unbelievable images that I was looking at. This script, this music, this everything that Usman had done. And then Mano, looking at the studio and looking and just thinking, this is Karachi today.
I had a read of it and watched a little bit of Usman's TED Talk and just fell in love with his mind and the piece. I think it's so beautiful. I was moved to tears actually when I first read the script. I think Moy's done an incredible job of creating something so beautiful and uplifting and heartbreaking all at the same time.
Usman is really kind of an impressive guy. He's one of these directors that as soon as you meet him, you realize you're talking with someone who's on another level, in terms of their creativity, their capacity for creation.
So The Glassworker is obviously a very, very special project. I saw one of Usman's TED videos. I really felt like this talent needed a lot of support as well as all our love. And I was absolutely blown away with the vision, with the talent behind the team, as well as Usman's real passion to tell stories.
Definitely what really drew me to the project was the talent by Usman Riaz and the work he put on the project, the talent, the sheer hard work he has put at it, and the faith he can be able to project to the team and to the world. I think Usman Riaz will be a household name very soon.
Ever since I was a child, I obsessed over animation. It's what inspired me to draw. I spent hours of my youth watching films from Japan and America. I never wanted to go abroad and work. I always thought if someone started a hand-drawn animation studio in Pakistan, I would join immediately. I taught myself the ins and outs of animation by studying everything I could find in books and online. I learned how to make storyboards by studying the storyboards of my favorite animated films. As I said earlier, I was desperate for someone to start a studio, and I would have joined in a heartbeat. I wanted to do hand-drawn animation in Pakistan, just to try and build an industry here. But life had other plans. No one started a hand-drawn animation studio in Pakistan, and I pursued drawing and animation in my spare time while devoting myself to my other passion, music. In 2012, I was selected to showcase my music, art, and short films at TED. At 21, I was one of the youngest TED Fellows ever selected. TED was an eye-opening experience. I dropped out of my university in Karachi and began speaking and performing at TED and TEDx conferences all over the world. In 2013, I was invited to Berklee College of Music on a full scholarship and even got an opportunity to conduct my orchestral compositions in Boston. more time I spent around the amazing pioneers at TED, the more my mind started drifting from music back to animation. If no one was going to make a hand-drawn animation studio in Pakistan, I'll make my own. In the summer of 2015, I had talked my way into presenting at TEDx Tokyo, where I poured my heart out about my love for the Japanese animation industry. I was hoping that I could show my ideas to a few people there and get some guidance as to how I could start my own humble little studio. And I was invited to some of the greatest animation studios in Tokyo, and I learned so much from these visits. When I arrived back home, my mind was racing with possibilities for The Glassworker. It was a very special time. I got the guidance I needed from my heroes. So how does one make a hand-drawn animated film in a country and culture with no background in hand-drawn animation? We needed to assemble a team of people who we could work with. I dropped out of Berklee College of Music, which was the second university that I dropped out of, after already dropping out of Indus Valley School of Art and Architecture in order to pursue music and prepare to embark on my animation journey. For The Glassworker's producer, I knew that this position held a lot of responsibility, from logistic and creative input to overseeing the work being done every day. Mariam and I discussed that there was only one person for the job, someone who had the right creative mindset and business experience, my cousin Haider Riaz.
I didn't come on full time because I was working somewhere else, but I was kind of involved. So the Kickstarter video that we shot and some of the planning that went into the whole project going up, that was something that I was involved in. But once Usman came to Pakistan and said, we need to do this here, that's when I was like, okay, let's do it. So I quit my other job and said, let's do this full time.
I got along with Usman pretty well and pretty soon. And suddenly he told me, my cousin is the producer. Which, oh my God, I said, oh, that's going to be tricky. But at the end, I was really, really happy to find Haider as a partner producer in this film. I was really amazed how professional he is. We worked together very well. We complement each other, and it's such a pleasure to work with such a professional producer.
For The Glassworker's art director, I knew Mariam would be the best person for the role. That is what she excelled at our university. And Mariam also studied theater and art in Immerse in Boston, so her acting experience was vital in assisting me in the direction for the film. And Mariam even had the right technical approach to assist Haider in production.
I love the tiny little details. Every little object that the character is probably going to interact with has its own story to tell, and that's pretty much how we dealt with all of the objects in the film as well. There's so much you can tell about a character just by the way the books are arranged on their desk. And that is how we wanted to build the world and create a space that was lived in. Usually people tend to say with art direction that nobody's really going to notice it because it's in the background. That's literally what they're called, backgrounds. But that is what brings that emotion into the space. I think every tiny little piece is what creates the film.
Working with Mariam was such a pleasure because I was able to be invited to this universe. I was able to see a reality I wasn't used to.
I know that Mariam, who's also a poet, will continue to dabble into the creative realms that she wants to. And Haider will be one of the most prolific studio heads in the coming years.
For animation director, the talented Amir Rifat. Amir caught my attention because in my second year of university at Indus Valley, he had made a beautiful hand-drawn animated film for his thesis, while everyone else was making graphic novels and paintings. Amir's technical knowledge and animation experience was vital in the formation of our own animation pipeline.
I was the first person that Usman, Mariam and Haider got on board. I was definitely a part in building the animation processes, the film as it looks today, all of the changes it's been through. The studio itself, hats off to Usman, Haider and Mariam for making that happen, and for everyone else that they got involved to help us have this space.
For our character designer, the talented Sophia Abdullah. Sophia had worked in numerous animation studios in Malaysia before joining our team. Her experience really helped in training people here in Pakistan.
I was hired as character designer. Usman approached me to basically interpret his sketches, I think. just to see who would probably fit the vision that he has. I've been animating and drawing since I was young, but like to have someone really be like come in as a character designer, that was kind of a new experience for me. There was no team in the beginning, so I was the only character designer at that time.
I knew that Pakistan is full of so much potential, and there's so many gifted young artists here. It seemed like a simple idea at the time, but nothing prepared me for how difficult it would be to get this studio up and running.
The biggest resource that we needed at an animation studio was animators. So what we had to do was put out a call, and a lot of people responded. We did a lot of social media posts. We actually even did a school tour. Things that we learned while doing that. Getting somebody in isn't as hard as it is to train them and to make them stay and make them do consistent quality work, which was the toughest part. The creative heads and I kind of had to put a training program together that we reverse engineered ourselves. Truth be told, that reverse engineering, looking at films that we like, looking at animation that we like, and kind of figuring out how we could make it work was the biggest challenge.
And the response was amazing. We received a lot of portfolios and recruited dozens of people in the beginning. I thought, wow, everyone loves hand-drawn animation. But once they saw how much work it was, suddenly they didn't love animation as much. I began to realize everybody loves watching hand-drawn animation. Making hand-drawn animation is a whole other story. And I was pretty upset in the beginning, but I understood why they left. In most South Asian parents' minds, if you aren't becoming a doctor, a dentist, or an engineer, you're a failure of a human being. And eventually, we did find a few exceptional artists from across Pakistan to join our studio. We also found some unexpected talent.
I graduated from dental school, so I was a dentist before I joined as an animator here. Completely changed everything, started from scratch again at 26. It was scary, but the good thing about this place is that they kind of accept you as you are. They teach you to do what they want to do here. And this is one of the truest collaborative experiences I've ever had, because you have people from 19 to 35 and they're all completely different, but they work together so well.
It's been a very formative experience, honestly, in the creative sense and in the literal physical sense. I joined Mano when I was pretty young, and to have been working with the group of such wonderful people, not only did I manage to learn creative things, but honestly even things about life, how to conduct yourself in a meeting, how to engage a larger crowd, so like public speaking even. It's been a great experience.
My qualification is that of a doctor. So forget animation, even the art field was something that would not have even occurred to me. First thing that strikes you when you come here at Mano is there's a standard. If your skills are not there yet, they will take it there. It's a good feeling, especially if you're somebody who wants that sort of excellence in your field. I mean, it's pretty cool.
Joined as a character designer, and then I went into making 3D layouts. I started doing backgrounds, making 2D looks, helping art direction, and now I'm compositing. There's been a lot of personal growth, especially working with Mariam. I would say I've been very much organized now than I was. I got to learn so many new softwares. I got to learn so many new techniques. Just looking at our higher ups and their work ethic, it just makes you want to come in and just work more, harder, learn more. So I try to just learn everything which I can from them.
If Mano didn't exist, I don't think I would be doing art as a career, because there was a big change in my life. Nobody else was doing that in Karachi. Great learning experience, and I don't think I'm done learning yet. There's a lot more to learn.
So we had started assembling a team, but we still didn't have what you can call a studio. Mariam Khizr and I had to build a studio in order to make The Glassworker. Normally a studio needs a film to make. We had a film, but we didn't have a studio.
So the first studio was just a few rooms. It was actually one room, and then it expanded into a few other rooms.
So we are in the old Mano office, which we occupied this from when? 2016 to 17, so like a year.
Yeah. It was just this room first.
Yeah.
And then we expanded here. And then there was this one, and finally this one, and that was it.
We started with a very small team, and then it started getting bigger and bigger. And in the start of 2017, we realized we needed our own space. And in order to do that, we came here. So when Usman and I visited, I just said, listen, I don't think we can like cookie cutter put an animation studio here instead. We're gonna have to build it from scratch. So we took a hammer to the place and literally took everything away, broke everything down. The gargantuan task was actually doing that for the first time in my life. I had never had anything to do with construction before. That journey and seeing the studio become what it is now from then has also been great.
We had all sorts of people, designers and illustrators who had previously worked in art houses, game studios, ad agencies, come and join this circus we started in Karachi. Against all odds, we began to form the very first hand-drawn animation studio in Pakistan, Mano Animation Studios. I realized no big TV studio in Pakistan would fund this project. With some guidance from my mentors, I decided on Kickstarter to fund our pilot for The Glassworker. The purpose of this pilot was to showcase the work Mano Animation Studios was capable of doing and to assist us in raising money to complete the entire film. We set a goal of $50,000 to make a few minutes of animation and somehow managed to make more than double our funding goal.
And that is what allowed us to set up our first studio, our first batch of hires, our first batch of equipment, all of that to kind of experiment and see what works.
It was about 7 years ago, and I saw some clips about their Kickstarter, and I thought it was an unbelievable, ambitious project. I knew they would need some help. Luckily, it was in the same city where I was from. At that time, I was part of some art group studios. We used to teach each other through Google Hangouts and stuff. And we did some podcasts, so I interviewed Usman Riaz. He said, why don't you join us? And I said, sure.
One of my friends was into filmmaking. He showed me the TED Talk, and then he showed me the Glassworker's initial reel that was for Kickstarter. Before Mano, I was working as a trainer in a BPO company. So then I was a little nervous. I said, maybe I won't get in because they're looking for animators and I've never animated before. I went ahead and gave it a shot. I came and gave my interview. I got in, and that was the best decision of my life.
Also, I was very surprised to find that the project and the studio in Mano, there were many women, also women that were, in roles of responsibility, like Mariam is, and how balanced the team was, but also many more. So that was a really nice surprise.
My role is basically coordinating between various departments. So it's business related and creative departments. I have worked with Khizr directly since day one. It has been a journey, and I would say that I consider him as my mentor. I didn't have any prior experience in this field or any knowledge. I said most of the things that I've learned is from him. It is lovely. That doesn't sum it up, but it just keeps getting better and better, and even the challenges keep growing stronger and stronger.
Overcoming many obstacles, we completed the pilot animation in January 2018. It was around 6 minutes in length and allowed us to flesh out the world we were building for this film. The pilot went on to take animation enthusiasts by surprise, and I was pleasantly surprised as well. I guess people were able to appreciate the sentiment behind this project. The Glassworker really is a love letter to the hand-drawn animated films that I love. The beauty of the frames drawn and painted by the human hand have a timeless quality to them. And the groundbreaking quality about our project is not the medium that we chose. It is the fact that we are making something like this in Pakistan. No one has ever attempted to make something like this in Pakistan. All I wanted to do was make a beautiful film that moves people, the way the films I grew up watching moved me. I feel very fortunate to have worked with everyone who has come through the studio's doors. When we completed the Kickstarter pilot and when all of the celebrations were behind us, Mano Animation Studios faced a new challenge. We had only made a proof of concept of this film. How on earth are we going to make a feature film with our small and inexperienced team on our own in Pakistan?
The start of 2018 is when we finished the Kickstarter, and then after that we were a bit lost. And we were lost on multiple levels. We didn't know where the story was going. So we knew that we had those creative challenges, but we also had a large funding challenge that we didn't know what to do with.
We knew with the scale of this project that this wasn't something we could complete on our own. Thanks to my many trips to Japan, I frequently encountered Mr. Jeffrey Wexler, the chief of international of Studio Ponok and Studio Ghibli's English language producer. Jeff believed in our work and came on board as a creative consultant. Jeff's contributions were vital to the development of our film. I also put all of my TED Talks training to use and prepared a pitch of a lifetime to try and secure the funding we needed to complete the project.
Usman had come across a VC in LA, a Pakistani businessman, to kind of fund us, and they had a little bit, but we needed a larger amount to actually see this through.
Thankfully, due to the pilot animation success, we were able to bring on board some key people to help refine the film. Jeff reached out to Moya O'Shea, an award-winning scriptwriter and actress who wrote our screenplay based on the original story that I had written.
I've done a lot of radio drama, which is a great way to learn to write anything. I've also always liked a rom-com, so I love a bit of romance, and I think this has got such a beautiful romantic story. I must tell you about my trip to Karachi, because that was just the most amazing experience. And we had a big script summit there, discussed Usman's original script, and I then had very big ideas about what we needed to do, give the Glassworks a function during wartime, and also make sure that the story really reflected Pakistan. I think my main objective was to tell a ripping yarn.
In December 2018, the international team got together in BAFTA in London and finalized the Glassworker script and story using the initial drafts that I had written. Moya also incorporated some ideas that I was afraid to incorporate in the film because I was just worried about how the team would be able to make it. Just my designs for airplanes and warships and just things that would have been very, very difficult to animate, but Jeff and Moya both encouraged me, put them in, we'll figure it out later. I'm glad they said that. When we were done, I was extremely happy with the screenplay. I felt it was a nuanced story capturing all of the feelings and emotions I wanted to portray in the film. We were in a good place, and we decided to move forward with pre-production. The project was slowly gaining momentum. It felt like things were beginning to fall into place.
The end of 2020 and early 2021, we sat the existing investors down and we said, listen, if we are to finish this film, we needed this X amount of money and we need it for these many reasons, and this is how we spend it and this is when we finish it. And luckily they said, okay, we've seen you through this far. Let's just see you through to the end.
For me, the heart of the Glassworker really emerged in the storyboarding process. I took it on myself to draw all the storyboards. As a kid, I obsessively watched my heroes draw their films. Just something about that deeply resonated with me. I could see the film in my head when I closed my eyes. I knew exactly what I wanted to do. I even drew my live-action short films with this exact storyboarding process. In order to realize the Glassworker, I had to put extra detail into the storyboarding process because our team was still inexperienced. And having made a few short films and the Kickstarter pilot, I knew what I wanted to do and I knew how I wanted it to be executed. I planned every shot very meticulously, paying close attention to the framing and composition, the expression and the designs of the characters, the lighting, and what I'm trying to say in the scene and what I want the audience to feel. It is an extremely technical process. You have to have a firm understanding of animation. Being an animator myself really helped in this aspect. I think I drew a total of 1,477 shots. That's almost 2,400 individual drawings. It took 17 intense months, but I finally completed the film storyboards in September 2020, right in the middle of the pandemic. I learned a lot from the storyboarding process. Personally, I wanted every aspect of the film to be as beautiful as possible, even if no one is going to see the storyboards. However, my feelings regarding the length of the script were correct. I ended up drawing a very, very long film. I edited the animatic and did all the scratch music and Foley myself. Mariam and I even did all of the scratch voice acting, which was a lot of fun.
Doing the voice acting with Usman was actually one of my favorite parts about the whole film. I could really put everything into it, and I think I was extra careful because this rough voice acting is what would be provided to the animators to animate.
How could you have bought something from that pacifist?
My dearest, a 14-year-old boy can hardly be called a pacifist.
Vincent.
One of the few we've sold lately.
Are you making something? Maybe I could see. Last time I visited the workshop, I was thrown out.
They did such a good job that people thought they were final voices, even though it was just the two of them doing Usman doing the male voices and Mariam doing the female ones, and Mariam actually doing some of the boys' voices as well.
Huh? I thought your fiddle was the gin wailing in the sea cave. Sounds like it's got a bellyache. This is my violin, not a fiddle, and if anything sounds like a bellyache, it's you. Hey!
The film was now in a form where we could begin presenting it to people. Our reputation in Pakistan was slowly spreading, and the studio was constantly being visited by people excited by the prospect of this sort of work being done in Karachi. One such visitor was Rashna Abdi. Rashna wanted to connect us to an old friend from college. That friend was the amazing Manuel Cristobal.
A few years ago, I got a call from her, and she said, some friends of mine are doing an animation film. You should talk to them. And I think it's the polite thing to do. I started talking with the team from The Glassworker, and to my surprise, we are. And it's a wonderful coincidence, and I will thank Russia Abdi forever.
I had read about Manuel in 2013 when I watched his film Wrinkles, and I remember being blown away by it. It was an honor to have Manuel come on board as a producer as well. Mariam, Khizr and I have learned a lot from him, especially Khizr. Manuel's experience is something the three of us really needed to navigate the international animation industry. And with Manuel by our side, we went straight to work. Thankfully, Manuel loved the animatic and saw the potential of the Glassworker, but he also felt the film could use some trimming. The animatic was coming out to be almost 2 hours. Now, I have said many times to everyone on board that while I do have a set vision for the Glassworker, I'm not going to let my ego get in the way of making this film as good as it can be. I wanted to make the best film that I could, and I was ready to go to the ends of the earth to achieve it. Manuel connected me with his longtime collaborator and editor, the wonderful Jose Manuel Jimenez. After a few conversations with Jose, he knew exactly what sort of tone I was hoping to achieve for the Glassworker. And who better to learn from to become a better director and storyteller than someone who has worked on some of the best animated films that I've seen.
The first thing I really love about the film is the story. The story in animation and in live action. It's everything. I like the epic scale of the story. Epic elements like war, but with very clear and very small love story in the center. It's like Dr. Zhivago or another classic films from the 50s and the 70s. I really like to work with Usman because he's very kind, he's very friendly, he really understands the process of editing.
I remember the editing process for the animatic being extremely difficult, having to cut a lot of things, but Jose taught me to trust the story that I had drawn. We just had to find a way to navigate through it effectively. And after a lot of hard work and collaboration, we brought the film's length down from 1 hour 56 minutes to 96 minutes, without losing any of the intimate character moments, which is a testament to Jose's talent and experience. Our film was ready, and with the support of this incredible international team, we were ready to take on the challenges ahead. So why do I feel it's important for us to make this movie? And what do I want to say with The Glassworker? The Glassworker is an anti-war film. I believe that war is not the answer to anything. Ultimately, the people caught in the conflict suffer, regardless of whoever the victor is. The battles of the Great Ravine, a land of disputed territory between two sides at war, are heavily influenced by the continuing conflicts that take place in the subcontinent and the world over. My grandfather was a colonel in the Pakistan army, and my mother's childhood stories inspired Alize's experiences of watching her father, the colonel, leave home with a constant sense of uncertainty surrounding his return.
The Glassworker is a very important film because the genesis of it really built from the understanding of the sentiment around war. We're seeing that war in any region across the world sends out a very big ripple effect of despair across the globe. At this time, a feature film that really talks about the way to finding that global peace docks itself as a very, very important message. The Glassworker's intent as a film is not only technically brilliant because of Usman's skill, but it has a very intense and a very, very important emotional core. In this world, there is no place for war, and that is the strongest message that the film communicates, and we hope that it reaches far and wide.
The glass scene throughout the film serves as an allegory for life. Life is beautiful, but it is also fragile. Life requires care and consideration to shape its beauty. With its vibrant colors and shifting forms, glassblowing is a magical medium worthy of exploration in animation. Alize's relationship with music reflects my own musical journey. I'm a classically trained pianist and composer. I grew up playing the works of various composers, but it was only when I began writing my own music that I realized I had a voice. There is a fantastical element to the film as well. Jinn, in Pakistani and Islamic culture, are beings created from smokeless fire. And in the film, the jinn serves as an unreliable narrator, influencing Vincent's decisions and guiding him through the world. Alize has written a letter to Vincent, reminiscing about their past and their time together. What happened to their friendship? Where is Alize now? How did they overcome the approaching war? These are questions that I hope keep the viewer intrigued throughout the course of the film. And I also loved the idea of seeing our characters fully developed in the start, and then peeling away the layers and discovering who they are and what their experiences were. If the animation is strong, but the story is not impactful, then you just have a bunch of pretty pictures. Animation is just ultimately a vehicle for the story and its themes. The Glassworker takes place in the fictional setting of Waterfront Town, a coastal city caught in the conflict of war. When preparing for the film, we began to rediscover our city from the lens of filmmakers to find inspiration for the Glassworker's world. Karachi is the largest city in Pakistan and the 7th largest city in the world. It's one of the busiest ports in South Asia, and in turn, it connects us to the rest of the world. Bazaars are a huge part of our culture. The hustle-bustle of goods and people and spices scattered about was an important aspect we wanted to capture. The bazaars have a certain sense of charm to them because of the haphazard nature of everything. The colors of the clothes, textiles, fruits and stalls, posters, all sorts of marks on the walls, old frayed cloth. It's an organized chaos. The sea and trips to the beach are a part of Karachi lifestyle. You'll notice this influence in the Jinn's Cave on the beach. And speaking of beaches, sand is a very important element in the film. Glassblowers use sand to make their glass art. This is why the glass shop being near the beach was planned very strategically.
The buildings themselves are actually heavily inspired by Pakistani architecture. The Royal Academy has Gothic architecture elements like Venetian windows, similar to Prayer Hall and Empress Market. So I wanted to incorporate that because it is a part of our history. It is a part of where we're from. There's a mix of obviously local architecture as well, very Mughal and Islamic architecture that we wanted to create. And then there's also hybrid fusion. Right? That's the fun of animation. You could just make whatever you want.
So we worked in stages. There was a pre-production stage and a post-production stage. In the pre-production, the art department was supposed to take references for everything that we needed in the film. The look was supposed to be decided. So we made groups and went out to Sadr and Prayer Hall and places to take references so everything is accurate. Once we had everything finalized for the looks, and there was backgrounds, just 3D animations, layouts.
The goal for the art direction was to create a world that is believable and structurally sound. This meant mapping out the whole topography of Waterfront Town, its roads, cliffs, rivers, and bridges. The commercial district is where we find the primary location for the Glassworker, the Oliver Glass shop.
So one of our first recruits was Rachel. She was our environment designer. She helped flesh out the architecture as well with our architects. The main idea that we wanted to incorporate in it was that the glass shop should be visible from everywhere when you're on a cliff or wherever in the fictional town. So because the glass shop is one of the main characters in the story. We had to make sure that everything was accurate and the architect had to come in and flesh it out.
It's a different workflow that you have to follow when you're an architect. Essentially, the backgrounds for an animated movie, or at least conceptualizing the backgrounds and developing
the architecture based on where the camera will be sitting as opposed to an individual will be inhabiting a space. You have to change the way that you think about spatial characteristics. It's different, and it's been an enjoyable process making that transition. I've learned a lot that I think that I will integrate into my architectural workflow. Yeah, it never occurred to me, A, that I'd be doing work with an animation studio, and B, doing this in Pakistan.
My role actually changed twice at Mano. I started off as an animator. Now what that did was that those 2 months that I was animating, it helped me delve into the art itself and really understand the amount of patience and energy that goes into just seconds of a film. And right now my role as an architect is to design the environments. Again, which is very thrilling for me because it's the actual spaces where the animation lives and breathes.
You can look at our journey so far as being production of an animated film alongside pre-production. So a lot of the architectural work, a lot of the storyboarding, parts of the storyboarding can come under pre-production. Build the world, like Mariam said, that we're trying to showcase. Build the characters, build the design of the film, the look of the film. Focus on quality is something that we've had to work hard at. The de facto position of somebody from here is that you have to get the work done and it doesn't really matter how it looks. But the business that we're in, all that matters is how it looks. So we have to work super hard on making sure that everything, every single drawing is to the specifications of the director's vision, and then it has to basically be the best version of that drawing that it can.
For our research and development, we were invited to the amazing Peter Layton's glass shop in London. Here we were able to study the meticulous process of how glass is made. We learned about the tools, the different processes, and became students in the art of glass blowing. Mariam sketched concepts and modeled glass sculptures, taking inspiration from the glass blowing studios we visited, capturing the colors and interesting silhouettes of glass. The art department analyzed the way glass looks, the lights, the darks, the shadows, the reflections, and tried to recreate it. Glass blowing is a very organic process. Once the glass is superheated, you won't have much time to work with it, as the glass starts to cool down immediately. One of the experienced glass blowers told us, you have to accept that it won't always turn out the way you expect it to. Don't make it do something it doesn't want to do. Structurally, the story is told in vignettes and flashbacks. The film is not linear. For the locations, this meant visually showing the passage of time. This was one of the most challenging aspects for the art department.
The script jumps back and forth. There's about, I think, 6 different years that we have to depict. It's a coming-of-age story of Elise and Vincent, so we have to show them grow up. So to keep track of what was happening during that time, we had to take Usman's storyboards, organize them according to particular years.
The locations needed to feel believable, and the set design needed to reflect what was happening in the story, not only according to the time period, but also according to the political situation. The workshop had to shift between a warm, haphazard, creative space to a colder, more calculated space, affected by the coming war. Even blackout curtains were added to the glass shop for bomb threats at night.
Usually storytelling is, for anything, is usually very linear. This is like you're going into flashbacks, you're going back to certain moments, and, you know, as a background painter, you need to know what exactly was, placed on the table at a certain time, and then they might move it by the evening because of what went on in the story, so you need to know all that. So that's why we have all these charts to help us keep track of, what's going on.
For the characters, we wanted to encapsulate Pakistan's local colors and characteristics.
So with character design, we wanted to have a pretty distinct style. We really tried to hone our own thing. We do mix in a little bit of real proportions. Our process was really to just find like the right footing of Japanese influence, but not like completely copying it. Yeah, I think we found our own thing with the character designs of this film.
What the character design team actually does is that we don't just create the characters, we also make production boards, which is Usman's storyboards, and we add character design on top of that and any other asset that we basically need from art direction into that shot. And then animation moves it forward. We had a very small team, maybe 2 or 3 people, and we basically created every production board for the film, which then moved forward to animation.
Vincent and Elise also come from different worlds. We wanted to show the difference of class, priorities, and values, which, aside from the war, is another subtle obstacle in their relationship.
It takes a lot of consistent effort for a very long time, and we're trying to save a dying art form. We're trying to teach it to other people and learn it ourselves.
Seeing all those little details, including character design, story, background, to create this whole world that we've been able to create within The Glassworker. I think seeing all those elements come together at the end is what makes it really worthwhile.
Every single thing we have made for The Glassworker has been built from the ground up by Mano Animation Studios. Reverse engineering animation and painting processes. Amir, our animation director, was absolutely brilliant. He built all of the systems for compositing our backgrounds and animation from scratch.
The thing about this particular style of animation is I feel the specifics behind the techniques aren't as documented, or they're not as readily available just like that on the internet or in books. I mean, there are books that kind of explain what the process is, but they don't get into the nitty-gritties and the details that you would require knowing if you were to take this on. So a lot of it was just figuring out how it works. And that was one of the biggest challenges, to come up with ways that work for us.
Animation is a challenging craft to be in anyways. Hand-drawn animation, on the other hand, we have to draw each and every individual frames of that shot. So that, I believe, just getting those drawings right is one of the more challenging aspects.
Our method of working is extremely traditional. It's literally as though we're drawing on papers, and all the animation timings and spacing are all indicated on the page itself, which is rather uncommon. Having to do that took a lot of time and also like a lot of learning.
We had to teach everyone the fundamentals while also learning ourselves on what looks right, what feels right, what drawing spacing looks good for any particular shot, and how detailed we should draw the clothing and the folds. My father actually, he didn't plan on me drawing. He gave me a book about animation, and I've been fascinated by it ever since. When it all comes together and you see the drawings flow with good timing and spacing, it's something else. I remember I obsessed over this leather bag while animating it. I knew no one would pay attention to the physics of it if it looked fine, but if it looked off, everyone would be able to tell something was wrong. I believe in leading from the front. I wouldn't ask anyone to do anything I was not willing to do myself. I'm willing to put in all the work that is necessary to get this done. I had to have a very clear vision, both from a technical perspective and a storytelling perspective. My philosophy soon became, if I can draw it, then it's possible. I used my own shots as examples for the team. I told them no one taught me this. I learned myself, and you can too.
He leads by example. He is the first one in the studio. He's always there. He's not afraid to do the grunt work. Usually you see leaders and they shy away or they delegate the task, which is tedious, but Usman is not one of them. If somebody needs help, he will sit down with them, he will guide them and exactly share his vision with them.
Usman can do a lot of things. He does the story, he does directing, he does composition, like he lays out a really solid foundation.
Looked up to him even before joining the studio. I knew about him through his TED Talks. He's a very supportive person, and even he gives you a lot of freedom artistically as well. Like, it's not the case of if I tell you this, you have to do this. He's like a creative partner, so it's really fun.
People come in, they're not animators. We make them who they are right now. So some people are gifted at it, some people not so much. So every time a shot goes out that's really good, you just feel so happy. You're like, yes, my animators leveled up, and yeah, I had like some hand in it, but then you feel really happy with that. So every shot is a personal victory, honestly.
When you work here and you want to do a shot, you have to take references, right? So we've recorded if someone's being pulled by a rope, you have 5 people pulling one person with a rope to one side. And you'll see shots like that in the movie. So you'll know exactly how they were made.
When you make a rough animation, the line art is very sketchy. It's multiple lines. So we make sure it's a single stroke and it looks nice and clean. And then we fill them in with color. So that's the cleanup part that we're working on right now.
I'm doing cleanup in betweening. So it's like adding the in-between frames, which helps smoothen the animation. Tedious, but once done, it will produce a very smooth effect. The thing that I find the most satisfying is, honestly, we literally start out from scratch, from an empty canvas, and as you move along, you see the thing come to life, like if it's a character.
There are so many stages that go into a finished animation. We start with the storyboards, then our production boards, the rough animation, the cleanup, and all of the coloring stages, and finally the completed background painting. And bringing all of these elements together, and then faith comes in. I had to try and bottle as many emotions as I could into my drawings, and hope those emotions are not lost in this entire process.
I'll get in a little bit into what compositing is and then how VFX ties into it. So compositing in general is the process of combining elements and ending up with a product. So in the case of animation, you combine your animated frames, your background, and any sort of polish you'd put on top, and that would be your composited shot. The slight difference here to how we're doing it in the Glassworker is we're also creating VFX during the compositing process. So that's where me being the chief VFX artist comes in. On top of doing the animation direction and just the compositing, a lot of the VFX and a lot of the effects work is also being led by me. And I work with a team that specializes in both VFX and compositing.
Producing a film is not easy. Building a workflow to manage the entire production, which our producer Haider built from the ground up to ensure that we completed the film on time. His planning was crucial. He had to ensure that all of these brilliant, eccentric artists had a clear goal to work towards.
It's liaising with the creative team to ensure that they have what they need to do whatever creative task they're doing. So with animation, for example, if we have a team of animators, I need to be able to give them a structure and give them deadlines and give them work to do that is specific and not vague. So they would do the animation. We were always, from the start, we always made it a point to make sure that the background art was treated separately and the animation was treated separately.
Apart from building our aesthetic from scratch and teaching our team, again, while also learning ourselves, we faced the same production issues that any animation studio would face, making a film of this scale. Working with our outsourcing partners, getting the remote animators to understand the aesthetic, and then sending email upon email of drawing feedback, acting feedback, and painting feedback to get the animations and the backgrounds to look the way we want.
Outsourcing was something that we began 1.5 to 2 years ago. Because there's no industry here and there's no tried and tested ways of doing what we do here, we just had to rely on our own personal learning. So in the beginning, there was a lot of making adjustments to our process, making adjustments to how we were sending in the work. So as we continued to work with different partners around the world, we figured things out.
Our production process, although slightly, I guess, not very modern, it's a really good system to follow. The way we produce our animation, our pipelines, our production process, how to work more efficiently, which is mind-blowing to me because we're such a new studio. Technically, our process was just developed in these 3-4 years.
It's really hard. It's really, really hard. to build a studio, a business, while also make a film. I think it was tough, but it taught me a lot, and it taught us a lot of resilience. I think when I look back, all I remember is that I wouldn't have it any other way, because I wouldn't grow as a person, as an artist, if we didn't have this kind of baptism by fire, for lack of a better word.
Is it exactly how I imagined it? No, of course not. But if we had tried to achieve what I saw in my head for our first film, I don't think we would have finished by now. I think we would still be making it. At some point, you just have to accept the work for what it is and keep moving forward. And then take everything you have learned and apply it to what's next. The only difference between Mano Animation Studios and other animation studios in the world is that we have to deal with these issues in Pakistan, where we don't have anyone to guide us through this. We just have ourselves and our conviction. For the English version of the film, we wanted primarily a British South Asian cast to stay true to our roots. Mariam and I had a very good idea for what we wanted the characters to sound like. We provided a base, the rough voices we did for the animatic.
Later we would call it Destiny.
Pa, thank you. My teacher, my father, my friend. Alice?
Huh? Hello, Vincent.
Are you sure you should be seen here? We're not popular. The Great Ravine is disputed territory. There's great mineral wealth and some of the finest agricultural land. We claim it, so do they. So we go to war. Idiocy.
But if it really is ours...
We were very lucky to work with the amazing Lynn and David Friedman on the dialogue recordings for The Glassworker. David has worked on many timeless animated projects. It was just amazing to collaborate with him and to see his unique approach to this process. And I feel David and Lynn assembled an incredible cast.
My wife Lynn did all the casting on this, and she's just been tremendous and knocked it out of the park. And she just went, we're going to get as many people of South Asian descent as we can. Everybody's playing with British accents. They're playing it as really themselves or expressions of themselves in these characters. And Sasha Dewan, Art Malik, Mina Anwar, and Anjali Mahindra. I mean, it's an incredible all-star cast. Nobody's playing a put-on accent. They're just bringing a truth to these characters, and they're bringing their own craft, which is exceptional.
Because we were so busy with production, we weren't able to actually physically go to the sound recording facilities. The recordings were happening all over London, but Khizr, Mariam, and I sat in all of the sound sessions remotely.
This one, they're halfway in production, but half is animated and half isn't. So again, we're trying to always match the performance on screen and amp things where we can.
Pa, thank you. My teacher, my father, my friend.
Well, the character of Vincent was, a lot of it was on the page, but I think personally for me, I really resonated with the story. You know, we all know what it's like, falling in love for the first time. What's so great about the character of Vincent, mainly because of his father, he teaches him to go against the grain. You don't always have to do what everyone else does, and you'll see that in the film with some of Vincent's father's opinions about the war. You sometimes think that maybe the world that we're creating is completely different to ours. It could be set in a different country, but actually the themes and ideas are incredibly universal. It's kind of one of the reasons why we decided not to necessarily go for the obvious and do a South Asian accent. I get to be very truthful to me, even though I'm playing a different character.
There's great mineral wealth and some of the finest agricultural land. We claim it, so do they. So we go to war. Idiocy. It was lovely. It was lovely to sort of be involved in it and lovely to give my impression of what I think the father should be, who he is. The thing about playing the father is the fact that he's the moral center of the piece. You have to know what it's like to live in a patriarchal society, but in Pakistan, I would suggest that even today, this patriarchy stops people doing what they want to do. The father insists that his son becomes an artist like him, assuming he's just going to take over the glassworks and that's all he wants him to do. But the trouble is that having in some way constricted his son is liberated by it. He takes on the artwork and he becomes better.
Some may call it destiny,
The great thing about this particular role is I got to play Elise right from childhood through to adult Elise, the full sort of gamut of ages. And it's quite fun and a great challenge, finding all the different sort of tone shifts in my voice and attitude and the way one carries themselves when they're not as confident and young. So yeah, it's been a feast of a part. I think Elise and I have some similarities. We're both quite forthright and confident, but I think Elise is incredibly proficient at the violin, which I'm not, sadly. And I think I'd like to take away a little bit of her sort of lust for life and her joy for the world and her ability to see the beauty in things.
How do I feel like playing Mrs. Amana? I mean, she isn't... Well, she's very high status in that way. And I think, she's the kind of person where if she walked into a room, people would run away from her. I do hope that we're not too early.
That one was very good.
That one's going to fit.
Yeah.
It's absolutely going to fit.
I was one of the first boys to join when the guards began recruiting here. I know. And I aim to...
Could we try one with a bit more panting in it as well? Because they are running and then they stop and then he's short of breath. Just one more with that, please. Thank you.
Colonel Amano, Mrs. Amano, how delightful to see you again. Oh my.
So actually, I will say that the voice is perfect. This voice that you're doing fits the character perfectly. For this part, a bit more emphatic.
How could I not? Oh, how I wish I could play like you. But of course, I could not because...
Great. That was really great. I loved it.
Absolutely.
And full of love and everything. And she interrupts you anyhow.
Yeah.
So I think that's good.
It's that time of the afternoon when I have to say something nice about the artist.
This scene works so well now. Thank you so much. It's brilliant.
Thank you.
Like that?
Take one or take two. Which do you like? I liked them.
I loved both. I like the under the breath version in the second one as well, but both are amazing.
Back in the booth, I've been filming in Cardiff, so it's nice to be doing something completely different, doing some voiceover work, and it's when you come in, it's quite cozy and compact in here. I usually take my shoes off and make it as homely as possible because I'm usually in here for quite a few hours.
Thanks for getting me involved.
Thanks, guys.
I just wanted to say thank you very, very much. And thank you for your patience. Thank you for your support. I'm so excited to complete this film and show it to you. And it's an honor to have you on board. And David, thank you for everything. Reese, thank you for everything. It's been a pleasure and an honor. Thank you.
Thanks as well. Hopefully I'll meet you in person soon.
Absolutely. Wrap on Vincent. Over myself. Music has always been a big part of my work and my repertoire. I wanted the score to be simple and evocative. Working with Carmine Di Florio and Jose Carlos on the score for The Glassworker was just a wonderful experience. I began writing motifs for the film early on, and then I would present them to Carmine. and then he would write some motifs and present them to me. We had a lot of fun back and forths. He was a great collaborative partner and knew exactly what I wanted.
Usman came to me with his motific ideas at first in 2015, and then as the development for the movie went along, he started challenging me and saying, hey, can you come up with your own motifs for the movie?
I wrote the motif, the Ali's leaving motif, where it was in a minor key, it was very subdued, and I didn't think much about that motif. You took that and you transposed it, you put it in a major key, and you made it the army march. That's what really surprised me, and I was like, I would never have thought of that. That was absolutely brilliant. And what you did with that tiny motif that I didn't think about and really just made it into the entire majestic, triumphant theme that comes in was phenomenal.
I first came into contact with this film at Berklee College of Music. I remember Usman would stay up all night in his dorm working on this film, on the storyboards. So I got to see a very early version of the film.
The music is as essential to the film as the glass blowing. Elise is finding her own voice on the violin.
As a director, you understand music very well, and that's a great strength to have as a director because then that allows you to communicate with me on a very atomic level as well as on a general level, and it helped us sort of hone in and really find the right tone for this film.
I knew what I wanted the pieces to sound like. I remember we referenced Bach a lot for all of the music that the kids are playing in a formal setting. And then Elise's piece, I said it has to be much more legato and more from the romantic era of classical music. And you kind of ran with that, and it was amazing.
I have to give a lot of kudos to you and the entire animation team. And you guys took on the monumental challenge, not only just for an animated film, but for your very first animated film.
Yeah.
To actually attempt to animate the finger positions. And I just think that's something really commendable.
Being able to work with the people that I've worked with, you know, the wonderful musicians, Carmen, the composer, Usman, the director. Just the entire process of making the film itself was fantastic.
We were also very lucky to work with Steve Miller and Juan Ferro from Meticulous on the sound for The Glassworker. I gave them a rough outline of the sound that I had made in the animatic, and they just took it and ran with it.
Usman was really clear on the kind of thing he was looking for and the kind of influences he wanted to kind of, go into that sound design. So that required a fair bit of, kind of trial and error. Then there's also like a steampunk kind of aesthetic to the film. So all the vehicles, the planes, they all have that kind of steampunk mechanical kind of feeling. Also, some of the background ambiences, I think, the idea that in the glass shop itself, there's kind of the big furnace, which kind of is omnipresent, to kind of giving the perspectives, from the different spaces within the shop. And that also required, kind of some different treatment and spatialization.
There's a lot of elements in the film, gives you the space to create with sound. For example, the machines that works with glass, steam, the jing, which is this special energy that Usman created for the film.
It was a truly surreal experience sitting at the sound facility in Madrid and watching the film just come to life right before my very eyes. It was a big moment for us all. when we wrapped production on The Glassworker, I just felt this huge weight lift off of my shoulders. I can't explain it. It was just so difficult to maintain the same level of passion and obsession day in and day out for almost a decade in an environment like Karachi. And I also had to keep the team motivated. Not everyone is as obsessive as I am.
Usman is very hardworking, very passionate, and he is extremely humble. He is so humble that it makes us humble, or at least I could say that for myself. When I joined Mano, not just Usman, but everybody around him as well, they work so hard that you kind of have to match that level.
I can't do something I'm not fully into. So if you want to do something in your life, you should do it with all your heart, or your work will never show that kind of effort. And obviously everyone here really cares about this project, and it shows in their work. You know, love has been put into every single frame that they've drawn.
I have great faith in this movie. Personally, since day one, we did a lot of reboots. Even then, I had faith in this movie, and I am very certain that it's going to achieve great things.
It's that cliched thing, but honestly, if even a few people can be impacted or moved by the story, that is good enough.
The amount of hard work everyone's put in, I think it has a lot of potential.
It's a very, very rewarding to see the culmination of years of hard work come together and resulting in a film that on screen looks absolutely beautiful.
I hope the public likes how it looks. I hope they like the story. I hope they really like what we've done, the music, everything that we've put into it.
People often ask me, why did you choose to start this studio and make this film in Pakistan? I mean, it's true. It was an intense process making this film here. Apart from the lack of infrastructure for film in general, Karachi itself has a very badly managed infrastructure. I mean, things fall apart when it rains, especially during the monsoon seasons. Electricity goes regularly, and load shedding are just regular occurrences.
We're always surrounded by chaos, yet we still decide to live our life and create art like we're doing right now. And I think a lot of us as artists put that into the film in general, that why art is so important.
The challenges of doing this in Pakistan are that you're doing it in Pakistan. So that means all the challenges anybody growing up in Pakistan, living in Pakistan faces, you kind of superimpose those on making a film too. There's not much government support. Actually, there's none at all. You kind of have to basically fend for yourself. And I don't think it's just this challenge is a Pakistani challenge, but if you're trying to do something creative and you're trying to do something that's unheard of, you could be anywhere in the world and you're gonna have to basically break those doors down yourself.
Deep down, I guess I liked the challenge. One of my heroes says, you have to push yourself until your nose starts bleeding and see what you create. We really did will this studio and film into existence.
If you are really passionate about something that you need to do, you will overcome any obstacle you need to overcome.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
A lot of stuff goes to South Asia as service work from Western studios, and a lot of original work comes out of South Asia, but doesn't go beyond the borders. You know, it plays in South Asia, whereas this film is it's gonna play in the West. It is, to me, it feels closest to Gone with the Wind.
It's so great. I always think when you read a project, and if I feel that it's truthful and authentic, genuinely, and also the people that I get to work with, it's culturally specific for me in a certain way. At the same time, it feels incredibly universal. I've never worked on an indie animated film before, and it's great. And I really hope that people watch this and get the same reaction as I did when I first wrote the script. It was a bit of a tearjerker.
It was so incredible to experience that a revolution of sorts was beginning in Pakistan, and the intention of Mano to be able to find creative artists across Pakistan and bring them together, a very clear intention to achieve something as prolific as The Glassworker.
The Glassworker is a special project because it's unique, it's rooted in passion. All the films I produce, I would try them to be unique. And certainly, The Glassworker was a unique project. It was so out of the blue, so new, so fascinating. Also, the team around it was very young and very professional.
Animation in Pakistan could be great bedfellows. Let's hope it's happened. Because I see no reason at all why, storytelling is not limited to the Western world. It's not limited to the Southern world. It is something that is part of every culture, every tribe, Everybody has their stories to tell, and they all want to tell them in their way. The fact that Usman, has decided hand-drawn 2D animation is how I wish to tell this story about the stupidity of war is just brilliant.
All right, so focus. The relief I felt upon the completion of The Glassworker was short-lived. Making the movie, which was a gargantuan task to begin with, was not the only thing we had to do. We had to release that movie and do a localization for Pakistan. This meant dubbing the entire film all over again in Urdu. There was no time to recover from the trauma of production. I realized very quickly that the journey is far from over. I planned The Glassworker as an Urdu film, but after all the international talent started coming on board, we decided that we should primarily stick to English. But the plan always was to have an Urdu version of the film. We experimented with a lot of writers who attempted to capture the nuance within the English version of the film, but no one was able to produce something that we were happy with.
Usman, Mariam and I in particular really like the old Urdu dramas of the 1980s and 90s, and so we wanted a very specific style of Urdu spoken, which was a more classical version similar to the film. We didn't want it to be extremely pure that alienated a vast majority of the audiences. We wanted something specific, and we weren't getting that. We took the English script and we rewrote it in Urdu, and we used a writer who we really liked called Tanveer Afridi, and he and Usman primarily worked on the localization of it.
For the Urdu version of The Glassworker's casting, I knew exactly which actors I wanted to work with. I had a voice cast in mind even before we began the pilot animation.
Usman had always had a vision of who he wanted for each character. For the role of Elise, it was a no-brainer to go with Mariam. She had voiced the character in our animatic. And then we got some really exciting actors to come in and voice some characters like Muru and Dino, Khalid Anam and Sajir Saab and Faiza Qazi, and many other amazing actors. Getting this sort of new voices with Mariam and Muru and Dino, and then these old grizzled theater actors to voicing it, I think brings a really cool combination to it.
I sat with each actor for each session and we shaped their performance together.
तेज रंगों से अल्फाज को जरा वाज़े करें, इसमें कुछ मिस्ट्री होनी चाहिए.
Vincent Oliver is an artist like myself. I feel similar emotions towards politics here in Pakistan, where I myself am not so very connected to it. And I often find the questions that Vincent Oliver's character arc poses for the audience. What is the role of an artist in a country that's facing war? So I very much identify with the character. I find myself thinking and feeling the same emotions that he feels. A lot of the character arc that Vincent Oliver is going through, something that I personally am going through as I live my life here in Pakistan as well.
उन्होंने मुल्क की हिफाजत के लिए बहुत मेहनत की. मैं उनकी खुशी के लिए कुछ भी कर सकती थी.
Elise has been kind of a character that has been really close to me. Just also in the storytelling in general, it's like I've known her for so long. One, being able to do her in our local language in Urdu was a treat. I was really, really grateful to be able to do it and really excited. It felt almost natural when I was doing it because I knew her and I knew what I wanted out of her. We had done it a couple of times. We had done it through the scratch voice. We had gone through it in English, and each step leading up to the Urdu version kind of brought something new out of her. To me, it felt a bit easy and more natural to reach this point. Being able to localize the context of what she's saying was new and exciting.
Elise, मैं ये सब तुम्हारे लिए कर रहा हूँ. जंग पे जा रहा हूँ.
I think I like Malik's confidence. I think that is one thing that I would relate in terms of confidence. Yeah, I would say that me and Malik have a lot of confidence in us. I don't know how he feels on the inside, but I know that I share that trait with him. And also like the fact that, he has feelings for Elise. I've been there, you always, have that kind of feeling towards someone, but then there's another guy in the picture, which is not easy for Malik. But I think confidence is the one thing that I probably share with Malik, the character, definitely.
लेकिन मैं ये जरूर जानता हूँ कि विंसेंट जैसा कोई नहीं.
Almost is very close to one's heart because you see, वो जो सोच है वो एक जिम्मेदार, conscientious, एक बहुत सही दिमाग इंसान की सोच है। इस तरीके से उसने लिखा है, उसके जुमले हैं, उसकी फ्रस्ट्रेशंस वो भी हमारी फ्रस्ट्रेशन है, उसकी उम्मीदें जो होप्स हैं वो हमारी उम्मीदें होप्स हैं। तो ये तो बड़ा करंट और बड़ा प्रेजेंट सिनारियो को शो कर रही है फिल्म। ये
जो रेत पका सकते हैं वो कुछ भी पका सकते हैं।
I am admittedly a little intimidated given that I am going to be voicing the main protagonist. So I do feel like there's a bit of pressure, but at the end of the day, it's also very exciting and it's a huge honor to be a part of something like this.
I feel our Urdu cast did an incredible job. They are all very talented.
Usman's work I was familiar with from earlier. We had seen the steps from, him playing the guitar to him directing his short films, that every step was one step above the previous one. There was no stopping of a growth and evolution of the work that he was doing. The Glassworker seemed to be the much bigger jump compared to the other ones that he had taken. But when I saw it in its entirety, I firstly was just emotionally moved. And secondly, there is making a film of such a grand scale that is a difficult task. But then for it to have pathos and for it to move you, those two things kind of came together.
I've known Usman for a long time, so I always knew he was a phenomenal talent, and I always knew that he was, one of those rare talents that come out of Pakistan. And I was looking forward to what he was going to do in the future. And then a couple of years later, he decided to tell me that he's working on this animated movie called The Glassworker. Being a fan of animated movies in general, मुझे बड़ी खुशी हुई कि I was witnessing something that was Pakistani 100%, and something that had our influences, something that had, our voices, something that had work done by our Pakistani brothers and sisters. So I was very emotional to begin with.
उस्मान ने जब पहली दफ़ा ग्लास वर्कर का इनिशियल स्केचेस मैंने देखे तो मेरे दिल में आया कि यार इतना मुश्किल काम, कमाल मुश्किल पसंद इंसान है ये बच्चा। एक नियर इम्पॉसिबल टास्क इसने लिया अपने ज़िम्मे, और जब सिनेमा पे देखा तो सिवाय इसके कि हम कहते कि यार वाओ, सिर्फ यही एक लफ्ज़ निकला हमारे मुंह से कि सुभान अल्लाह और वाओ।
I think Usman Riaz is a visionary, and no doubt this must have taken a lot of time for him to put together cohesively and very unique for something to come out of Pakistan. This is something that can take Pakistan really far.
Usman is a very, very talented boy, but it surpassed all my dreams. I just thought it was the most fantastic film I've seen in a very, very long time. Beautiful pictures, music, the characters, and there was a sense of timelessness, which is what I loved about it.
When he first showed us a few clips of it, even at that time we said, "Beta, this is something which is really, really good." And then to be asked to become a part of it, it gives you a high that you are, actually becoming a part of something which I think is going to go very, very far.
For something like this to be done in Pakistan, जहाँ पे हम सब समझते हैं कि ऐसी चीज़ तो पाकिस्तान में हो ही नहीं सकती, पर क्यों नहीं हो सकती? Usman and his team, Mano Animations, have made us realize that कि हो सकती है, बिल्कुल हो सकती है, बहुत अच्छे तरीके से और अच्छे execution से हो सकती है.
We recorded our cast at EMI Pakistan. It was fun to see the actors' reactions when they would come in and when they saw the music archives. Muru, Dino, and Khalid Anam all being remarkable musicians themselves. That was pretty cool to see. The whole process of making this film has been days and nights of never-ending work. Khizr, Mariam, and I would work with our Pakistan team during the day, and then at night, because of the time difference, be on calls with Europe and Los Angeles and all of our international team members till the early hours of the morning. It was a crazy routine. I knew this would be a very long journey. That's why I've been documenting everything since the summer of 2014, the day I made my first drawing.
I've been following the project for like the past 2 years, and for some time was the editor of The Glassworker. It was my first feature film, and working on it has been my dream too. To watch the film evolve, because the file that I got was some shots were clean up, some shots were rough animation, some shots were composited, And to add every composited shot every day and to kind of see it become more complete was a very fulfilling experience for me. I've seen the film so many times, but I want to watch more.
It's a beautiful story, beautifully animated. It's just mind-blowing, the way they've managed to capture that level of art in their work. Couldn't believe it when I saw, and I've been seeing it from when it was a rough cut till I saw the final cut. It's a beautiful, beautiful story.
Part of the reason why Usman and I are actually fans of film and fans of animation is that we grew up watching them together. We would go to the video store and either rent a DVD or buy DVDs when we could. And we had probably already seen the film that we were going to be watching, so we would jump into the bonus features, the DVD extras, as they say, listening to the commentaries, looking at the deleted scenes, looking at the sort of behind-the-scenes world of making these films, to actually then be working together because we grew up watching those documentaries and making our own film in our own studio, and then making a documentary of that. I think it's poetic. I remember when I was in 8th grade, our school asked for people interested in potentially producing the school play of that year. I remember being in a room of like 20, 30 people, all who were interested in being the producer. And the exercise that they asked us to do was they said, this is your scope, come up with a budget for it and divide up what you would think the budget should be spent on. And I remember coming up with something on the fly and turning it in. And actually the next day, the teacher coming to me and saying, we've chosen you to be the producer. And you know what my reaction was? I just said, no thanks, I don't want to do this, give it to this guy. So that happened with me. I think life was trying to send signals that maybe this is the route you should go down. But I want to acknowledge that Usman and Mariam's belief in me right at the start to be actually able to do this gave me the belief to try this out and allowed me to get through whatever was required to fulfill my role. And I'm proud of the fact that I was able to.
I just am excited for the world to see what we've been working on. And I hope they appreciate it as much as we enjoyed making it. That's really important. And a lot of people have come together and put their heart and soul into it, and you'll be able to see that. And I'm always and forever grateful for everybody who's put their time and effort and beautiful talent into this. So I would say we've all grown, and I'm excited to grow more and see what more the world has to offer for us.
I have been making things my whole life. It is a part of who I am, and everything that I have done has been building on the previous body of work. I hope this documentary has given you some insight into what it takes to pursue a dream. It takes unwavering dedication and a willingness to make sacrifices. It is going to be scary, it is going to be difficult, and there will be days where you want to quit. You're going to make many mistakes. No one is going to come rescue you. You have to have the courage to follow your heart and give it your all, despite all of these setbacks. My family made a lot of sacrifices to support the studio during difficult times. I cannot thank them enough. To all the amazing people who put time and effort into joining me on this journey, I thank you from the bottom of my heart. To my partners at Mano, I could not have done this without you. I hope that one day we can all look back on this documentary and say, wow, we really gave it our best. Will we get the opportunity to go on another journey like this? Time will tell. But for now, we have to go away and dream it all up again.